What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to 2026, fight fans. The UFC has officially entered a new era with its historic 7-year, multi-billion-dollar broadcast deal with Paramount, bringing an end to the traditional pay-per-view model. Every numbered event and fight night is now available through a single subscription, reshaping how fans consume the sport. And it didn't take long for the headlines to follow. One of the welterweight division's most polarizing contenders, Ian Machado Gary, has wasted no time positioning himself at the center of this new chapter. Following dominant rebound victories over Carlos Prates and Bilal Muhammad, Gary has reignited his campaign for the biggest fight possible, a title clash with pound-for-pound king Islam Makhachev. After suffering the lone setback of his career against Shavkat Rakhmonov, Gary believes his path back to the top proves he's earned this moment. In a recent interview, he made it clear that this matchup is not only the most deserving title fight in the division, but the biggest fight the welterweight class can offer. Gary argues that the contrast in styles, personalities, and momentum would sell the fight on its own. On one side stands the reigning champion and widely regarded best fighter in the world. On the other, the division's most talked about contender, a fighter who continues to win while drawing attention everywhere he goes. But beyond rankings and resumes, Gary points to something even larger: legacy. The fight represents the next chapter in a rivalry that defined an era, Ireland versus Dagestan. A storyline once carried by Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, now reborn through the next generation. Confident and unapologetic, Gary insists he has taken the hardest road, beaten elite competition, and proven that he is next. In his eyes, this isn't just a title fight, it's a legacy fight meant to headline the UFC's new era. Before we jump into the next story, we have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon. It really helps us out and ensures you'll never miss an update. Move on to another news. On New Year's Eve, the MMA world was caught off guard when UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira and flyweight contender Pereira-Cortez went public with their relationship. The pairing instantly became one of the most unexpected storylines in recent memory, blending Pereira's calm, stoic persona with Cortez's fiery competitiveness. The announcement quickly pulled Brian Ortega back into the spotlight. Cortez is Ortega's former girlfriend, and their 2023 breakup was widely viewed as contentious, with both sides posting cryptic messages on social media that hinted at lingering tension. Fans wasted no time fueling the drama, flooding social platforms with memes suggesting Pereira had crossed a personal line. What made the situation even more complicated is that Ortega and Pereira were not enemies. In fact, the two fighters had always shared a respectful and friendly relationship. They both competed on the UFC 303 card in 2024, staying at the same hotel and crossing paths repeatedly throughout fight week. Ortega ultimately withdrew from his bout against Diego Lopes just minutes before walkouts, while Pereira went on to score a knockout victory over Jiří Procházka. Both fighters, fluent in Spanish, had consistently shown mutual respect in interviews and public interactions. However, only hours after Pereira and Cortez's relationship became public, Ortega posted, then quickly deleted, an Instagram story that raised eyebrows. Crazy how loyalty disappears when feelings get tested. "We'll meet someday." Many interpreted the message as a thinly veiled threat, immediately putting the MMA community on alert. Ortega is coming off a difficult loss to Aljamain Sterling, a defeat that prompted him to move up to lightweight. He is now scheduled for a rematch with Renato Moicano, a fighter he previously finished. Following the bout, Sterling addressed criticism surrounding the win, defending Ortega's toughness and resume. He emphasized that few fighters have ever come close to finishing Ortega and highlighted the credibility of defeating a proven title challenger. As tensions continue to simmer outside the cage, fans are now watching closely to see whether this personal storyline will spill into future UFC matchups. Move on to another news. UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira wasted no time responding to critics who questioned his commitment to the sport. In recent weeks, detractors pointed to his time away from competition, acting appearance, and vacation photos as signs that the 38-year-old might be slowing down. On New Year's Day, Pereira answered that criticism the only way he knows how, with action. The champion released raw training footage straight from the gym, immediately silencing doubts about his focus and work ethic. The video shows Pereira dominating his training partner, controlling the pace and imposing his will with the same physical presence and intensity that has defined his rise to the top. The clip served as a reminder of why Poten remains one of the most intimidating figures in mixed martial arts. Fan reactions poured in quickly. Many praised Pereira for grinding on a holiday while others were recovering from celebrations, calling it a clear sign of championship dedication. Others pushed back, arguing that the footage appeared to show Pereira overwhelming a less experienced partner and questioning whether the display crossed into unnecessary mockery. Regardless of the debate, the message was clear. Pereira remains unapologetic, focused, and fully locked in. Looking ahead, Pereira's future is as intriguing as ever. The champion has openly stated his desire to make a permanent move to heavyweight, with a legacy-defining superfight against Jon Jones at the top of his wish list. However, with Jones' timeline uncertain and Tom Aspinall sidelined long-term due to serious eye injuries, analysts are exploring more realistic scenarios. One possibility gaining traction is Pereira competing for the full heavyweight title or an interim belt against Cyril Gane to keep the division moving. On paper, it's a dream-striking matchup. Pereira brings devastating leg kicks, a thunderous left hook, and patient, long-range pressure that breaks opponents down before ending fights abruptly. Across from him would stand Gane, widely regarded as the most technical kickboxer the heavyweight division has ever seen, known for his elite footwork, speed, distance control, and precise kicking game. Move on to another news. Lightweight contender Michael Chandler has all but confirmed that his long-awaited showdown with Conor McGregor is finally set to take place this June, potentially headlining one of the most historic events in UFC history. For months, MC Gregor has been openly teasing his return from a nearly 5-year layoff repeatedly, pointing toward a massive UFC event planned for June on the South Lawn of the White House. The card is rumored to be part of America's 250th anniversary celebrations, with President Donald Trump publicly hyping the event as one of the biggest fight nights ever assembled. MC Gregor has consistently named Chandler as his opponent, the same fighter he coached against during The Ultimate Fighter in 2023. Their rivalry generated enormous hype before injuries and repeated delays ultimately scrapped their scheduled UFC 303 bout in 2024. Since then, fans have been left waiting as speculation swirled around whether the matchup would ever materialize. Despite coming off a difficult stretch in the lightweight division, Chandler remains one of the UFC's most explosive and fan-friendly fighters. That reputation was on full display when he appeared live on national television during CBS New Year's Eve broadcast and strongly hinted that MC Gregor's return plans are very real. During the interview, Chandler spoke confidently about the UFC's new era under its Paramount deal and addressed the rumors head-on. While stopping short of an official confirmation, he made it clear that the pieces are falling into place for a summer clash with MC Gregor on the White House grounds. Chandler even leaned into the moment, suggesting he's ready to deliver what he called a red, white, and blue beatdown on one of the sport's biggest stages, with MC Gregor publicly calling for the fight and Chandler now echoing those claims. The saga that has dragged on for years appears to be nearing its conclusion. If finalized, the bout would mark MC Gregor's long-awaited return and give Chandler the spotlight he's been chasing, all on an unprecedented stage that could redefine UFC history. Move on to another news. Following a highly anticipated grappling bout that ended in a draw, Tsarukyan addressed the outcome and shut down speculation surrounding a potential grappling match with Islam Makhachev. Speaking after the match in an interview with Red Corner MMA, Tsarukyan explained that the result played out exactly as he expected. He said he knew the contest would end with him securing a submission or go to a draw, believing there was no realistic scenario in which he would lose. According to Tsarukyan, his opponent avoided wrestling exchanges throughout the match, opting instead to defend along the ropes and minimize engagement. Tsarukyan noted that the bout format was originally proposed by the promotion and was intended to be longer. While his opponent pushed for a 5-minute match, they ultimately compromised on 6 minutes. Tsarukyan revealed his game plan was to wear his opponent down before pushing for a finish, but that approach never fully materialized due to the lack of wrestling exchanges. Despite that, he credited his opponent for executing a defensive strategy effectively and admitted he underperformed slightly. He also addressed the noticeable size difference, explaining that while he typically throws opponent his own size with ease, adjusting to a heavier body falling on top of him required quick adaptation. Still, Tsarukyan said he remains open to a rematch, citing strong fan interest, media attention, and the level of hype surrounding the contest, comparable, in his view, to a UFC fight. Tsarukyan then turned to the ongoing rumors of a potential grappling match with Makhachev and made his stance clear. He stated that such a matchup will not happen in the short term, primarily due to financial realities. According to Tsarukyan, Makhachev earns significant money competing in the UFC, and no grappling promotion could realistically afford to meet his compensation demands. For now, Tsarukyan believes the idea remains unrealistic, despite fan interest. While he continues to entertain grappling opportunities outside the UFC, clash with the reigning lightweight champion appears firmly off the table. Move on to another news. Former UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya recently broke down how he gauges distance and control range inside the cage, offering insight into one of the most important elements of his striking success. Adesanya explained that while he doesn't rely on a single fixed stance, he begins most fights from a familiar baseline position that allows him to read his opponent and establish rhythm. This staple look, as he described it, gives him balance, vision, and immediate control over distance. As the fight evolves, Adesanya adjusts based on how his opponent reacts. When he senses that he has hurt his opponent and sees them retreating, he becomes more assertive. At that point, he closes the distance deliberately, tightening his defense and operating in mid-range, where he can apply pressure while remaining protected. Knowing his opponent is fatigued or compromised allows him to take calculated risks without overextending. Conversely, when Adesanya wants to prioritize defense and control, he prefers to operate at long range. In these moments, he relies heavily on his long guard to manage space and disrupt incoming attacks. While effective, he acknowledged that maintaining this guard placed significant strain on the shoulders, making conditioning essential. He emphasized the importance of training the shoulders and improving lactic threshold endurance to sustain this style. Holding the guard for extended periods is physically demanding, and without proper conditioning, fatigue can quickly set in. Adesanya noted that once the strain builds, he transitions smoothly into a different range or stance to stay efficient. Ultimately, Adesanya described range control as a constant process of mixing positions and adapting in real time. By rotating between long-range, mid-range pressure, and defensive postures, he keeps opponents guessing while maintaining control of the fight's pace and distance. According to him, mastering just 2 or 3 variations and knowing when to switch is often enough to dictate the outcome. Move on to another news. Former 2-division UFC champion Daniel Cormier has opened up about the biggest regret of his legendary MMA career, pointing directly to his second fight with longtime rival Jon Jones. Speaking in a recent interview with Josh Thompson, Cormier admitted that he lost the mental discipline that had always defined his success inside the Octagon. According to Cormier, he entered the rematch in excellent shape and felt he was performing well early in the fight. However, that confidence slowly turned into arrogance, a mistake he believes ultimately cost him the bout. Cormier recalled absorbing a body kick and then successfully defending a head kick from Jones, moments that made him feel increasingly comfortable. As that confidence grew, he began talking to Jones and engaging in behavior that was completely out of character. He explained that throughout most of his career, his strength came from intense focus and tunnel vision, allowing him to wrestle relentlessly and maintain a high pace without distraction. Cormier emphasized that in his prime, he was so locked in that he often had no awareness of how rounds were being scored. Between rounds, he would ask his coaches, Bob Cook and Javier Mendez, whether he had won the round, even when he had clearly dominated. That level of focus, he said, was the foundation of his greatness. In the rematch with Jones, that focus slipped. Instead of staying disciplined, Cormier allowed emotion and confidence to creep in, leading to unnecessary risks. Moments later, he was caught by a devastating head kick that ended the fight. Looking back, Cormier says if he could relive that moment, he would have stayed fully locked in and never taken his attention away from the task at hand. He acknowledged Jones' elite skill level and admitted that even the smallest lapse against a fighter of that caliber can be fatal. For Cormier, that loss remains the single biggest regret of his MMA career. Move on to another news. UFC Hall of Famer Khabib Nurmagomedov has made it clear that friendship with former opponents is something he will never embrace. When asked whether he maintains friendly relationships with fighters he faced inside the Octagon, Nurmagomedov was direct. While he believes in showing basic respect and courtesy, he explained that true friendship is impossible after combat. In his view, fighting is fundamentally different from other sports. A former opponent, he noted, once tried to seriously harm him, making any idea of friendship unrealistic. Nurmagomedov emphasized that mixed martial arts is not a game, it is a fight. Unlike traditional sports, where competitors can separate competition from personal relationship, MMA creates a different kind of bond, one rooted in violence and survival. For him, respect is mandatory, but emotional closeness is not. He also addressed ongoing speculation surrounding his retirement and claims that he stepped away from the sport too early. Nurmagomedov dismissed those ideas, stating that his decision to retire was completely clear and final. He stressed that at no point since retiring has he seriously considered returning to professional competition. When asked whether seeing old fight photos ever sparks the desire to compete again, Nurmagomedov was unequivocal. He said the thought of returning to the Octagon has never crossed his mind. According to him, the decision to retire was made with total clarity and conviction. That said, Nurmagomedov admitted that his competitive spirit has never faded. He continues to train regularly and competes with elite, world-class fighters inside his gym. Whenever he feels the urge to test himself, he finds the highest level of competition in training, including some of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Competition, he explained, is part of who he is. Wrestling, training, and pushing himself physically are still deeply ingrained in his life. However, while the passion for combat remains in his blood, returning to the cage does not. For Nurmagomedov, that chapter is permanently closed.